A young man merges with a biomechanical device, becoming a cyborg superhero, out to fight the justice for humanity, which is being turned one by one into an alien race that built us. This is the Guyver! Well, what's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review and an unboxing of The Guyver from 1991. This is a movie that I used to watch a lot as a kid growing up because it was always so awesome, the practical effects and everything. I'm going to talk about what I think of this movie, give you my review, and then tell you all the ingredients in this 3-part limited edition series from Unearthed that comes out today. So yeah, first up, I just want to mention, this is the 4K Ultra HD version of the R-rated version of The Guyver. It has a Blu Ray, a CD soundtrack from Morse, who actually wrote the soundtrack for the movie, and a bunch of extra features on here that we're going to get into later. But for now, I'm just going to kind of tell you what I think about it, and then we'll, wrap it up with everything that's inside. Shout out to MVD Entertainment Group and Unearthed, who have been very helpful on this channel. They never asked me to give any other opinion than my own, and they are big supporters of this channel. So thank you guys for sending me out a copy of this movie. So what is The Guyver all about anyway? Like I said, it's a guy that merges with a biomechanical sort of device that turns him into a lethal fighting cyborg superhero that is set out to fight these zoonoids. There are a race of aliens that came to Earth that created us, planted seeds in a few of us to become these beasts whenever we wanted. And they are called the zoonoids. They even have the Zoolord, which is their leader, played by David Gale, who's been in some of my favorite movies, which I was literally just talking about him being in The Brain as David Blake, Reanimator, and many other fine films. And he did these movies with a lot of charm. Now, this is a movie that has a lot of practical effects. So if you like creature feature stuff and you like anything that has to do with like practical effects, this is going to be your cup of tea. In fact, some of the people that worked on this and directed this are practical effects legends, Screaming Mad George and Steve Wang. In fact, both of the directors worked on the original Predator outfit, which I think was like the one before the one we got, and then they worked on that one too, because there was one that was done that looked like an insect that Jean-Claude Van Damme was going to be in, and then that didn't pan out. Screaming Mad George also worked on like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Spaceballs, Children of the Corn 3, Faust, Necronomicon Book of the Dead, which we covered on this channel, Progeny, The Dentist 2, Beyond Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator, and then Stephen Wang, who's also a practical effects legend, worked on a ton of different films too. Like, I was looking up at the movie, and one of the creatures in this movie has like red eyes, and it looked so familiar, like one of the big boss guys. He's like the mini boss. Those eyes actually looked exactly like something I had seen in Gremlins 2, and I think he used the same type of method to create the eyes on the arachnid gremlin as he did on one of the main mini bosses in this movie. So it's just crazy like how far a lot of this goes. Now, Steve Wang actually had directed a few more films. He did the Kung Fu Rascals, which he had actually recorded and made before he did The Guyver. You know, it came out afterwards. He was a big tokusatsu fan, which is definitely a big subgenre in Japan. If you're not sure what that is, live action. And they used to have a ton of TV series out in Japan from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up to today of just basically like Power Rangers, but like they fight these monsters. And it's different though, because it's not always just Power Rangers. It might be just one person, or like, you know, they have a bunch of series out there that are just fantastic. And one of those series that was manga was The Guyver, which was actually written and made by Yoshiki Takaya, who was a big legend in the manga space because he created the Guyver from like 85 until 97. And he went on to do other projects too, but they made animes, they made manga, they made these live action films. This is the first one of the sequel. It was called Dark Hero, that Steve Wang did for himself. But yeah, just a little history on that. I'm a huge fan of the tokusatsu now. And once you go down that rabbit hole, there is just so many wild and crazy shows that you'll see that should not be for children, but their creature effects are amazing, but not as amazing as the creatures that are in this movie. The creature effects that they did in this movie, they did a very specific way. They did a full body suit on these guys, and they did some masterful work on the creatures and everything, which are very different than the ones in the manga series. That was something that Mad George wanted to do and change up things a little bit in here. Even though Steve Wang is more the tokusatsu fan than he was, he wanted to put his own sort of touch on it and spin on it for this directorial film here. We got so many actors in this movie. We got Michael Berryman from The Hills Have Eyes. Linnea Quigley makes a fucking cameo in here. We got Jimmy Walker from Good Times in this. Not saying Dynamite, by the way. Mark Hamill, freaking Star Wars legend, you know, is in here playing a detective, and I think he does a really good job for this role. I already mentioned David Gale, who's in this film, who I absolutely adore. Jeffrey Combs, even Peter Spellos, who a lot of people don't remember who he is, but he was the abusive father in Freddy's Dead, and in the dream sequence that the girl has about her father, she hits him with an iron. And I always remember it because his face is like all mashed in. He's like, "Why would you do that to me, honey?"
No honey for daddy.
Oh, bother.
Or something like that. Anyway, long story short, Unearthed has put out this edition, and I'm really excited about it because this is one of my favorite movies that I used to watch at night. You know, it's a movie that isn't exactly perfect. It is going to be probably a little bit more nostalgia for people who've seen it and grew up with it in the past. America never really saw any kind of tokusatsu stuff until like this, and then Power Rangers that came out afterwards. And Power Rangers was like more bubblegum. This is more violent and more darker and more adult. And the great thing is that this is the R-rated version of the film, which I thought the director's cut would be the more uncut version. This one has more gore in it, so this is the one that I think most people have seen, and it has the more gore in it, so that's the one I'm pretty much leaning towards. Now, we don't get both versions, the director's cut and the R-rated version, but it is a fully remastered 4K, so this is a full new restoration. It looks good, but I'll get into that more later. The story on this gets wilder and wilder. There is, you know, this underbelly group that David Gale's character, who is the leader of the Zoonoids, running an operation, make more Zoonoids and use it to harness more stronger, better, powerful Zoonoids to take over the entire world. It's not as graphic as, you know, one might hope. You know, for me, I just want to see a tokusatsu film where they just shred people. And we kind of get that with some of the newer tokusatsu versions. Like Kamen Rider has done a few Amazon ones, which were just a more violent breed of like adult version tokusatsu. But yeah, I'm kind of curious if they're going to do a sequel in 4K or at least a Blu-ray of it, because that one's only seen a DVD for a long time as well. If you like action films with a superhero that's a little bit more violent with some like amazing practical effects, creatures and stuff like that, very much akin to stuff like any kind of Yuzna film that you've probably seen. It's the origin story of the Guyver, and it does go into depth with some of the characters changing into a ton of different beasts. There's a lot of different creatures in here. It is a little bit on the silly side. It's not as serious as you might think. They did want to kind of inject some sort of humor into this to kind of make it go along a little bit better. And, you know, it is kind of funny in a way seeing these creatures all around anyway, so it's kind of hard to take seriously, but they look fantastic. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's definitely, like I said, going to be a more nostalgic piece for those of us who grew up with it. But I think a lot of people who have not grown up with this might really like it as well. It might open their eyes to wanting to see more adult films like this, because I honestly think that you could bring the Guyver to the future today and do a lot of fun stuff with it, maybe even as a television series, like, and do the story like a real in-depth story of everything that's going on. But it would be pricey. For me, I would say this movie falls at about an 8 out of 10 for me. It definitely has its flaws, and people who are not familiar with it might pick at it more than I would, but it's a nostalgic treat that I'll always rewatch. You know, it may be lower on some people's scale if they're new to the genre, but maybe this might be that one that they want to get. In any case, I want to get into some of the extras, all the ingredients and things that you might find in here, talk maybe a little bit about what it looked like and how it looked on the screen. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so the Guyver. Now this is the limited edition. You can hopefully still pick this up. If not, there's going to be a standard edition that you can get, and it comes with just the 4K and I think the blue front cover here. We get the side, get the back. You can see there's a ton of ingredients. A lot of the extras are on the Blu-ray. They both look like really good versions, both the Blu-ray and the 4K, but obviously the 4K looks phenomenal. Also, we got the cover on here. Now there is two different covers that you can get. This is the Japanese sort of cover. I just thought it was kind of cool to, looking. This actually has two sides to it, and it's all completely different art than the cover, the limited edition cover that you get. So you get both of these, which I thought was really cool. Inside, we get the 4K UHD here. On top, it has a flip thing here where you get the Blu-ray here, and then you get the soundtrack, which the soundtrack has a ton of, this is like, I don't even know that it's ever been released before, maybe on like record. But either way, we get the soundtrack here included. You also get a booklet in here that has a couple of people that have written in it. We have Dom O'Brien, who is the author of Budget Biomorphs, the making of the Guyver films, which he also does the commentary on the movie as well with Screaming Mad George and Steve Wang together. He does a couple of things with them in the extras, actually. I think he did all of the commentary with them, and it's just to kind of keep them on track for everything, which is really cool. Dom's really cool. I like listening to him talk because he knew stuff that they didn't even know. We also get a little bit of a writing here from Matthew Morse, who kind of talks about the soundtrack. He's the guy that actually created it. So it's just a nice little addition of a booklet here to have with your favorite movie that you can enjoy. Chock full of extras in here, and we're trying to go over most of them here. The wording on here on the back here is so small, but you do get the new 4K restoration of the 35mm camera negative by Unearthed Films. They actually did it themselves, presented in the original 185:1 aspect ratio in HDR. So HDR is present. We get the commentary, like I said, with Screaming Mad George, Steve Wang, and Dom O'Brien. We also get the making of Guyver films, new commentary with actor and effects artist Evil Ted Smith, and Creature Shop Lab Tech miniature supervisor Wyatt Weed, who has been a very close friend to Steve Wang and Screaming Mad George. On the Blu-ray, you get a little bit more. We actually have producer Brian Usna, who is also a director and has done many other movies with these people. He actually does a nice little talk about the whole, like how the movie came about and like why he wanted to make it. And he was pretty hands off on a lot of it, and he just let, Screaming Mad George and Steve Wang run with this. They have a new interview with Screaming Mad George in here. There's a suit test with the commentary by co-directors Screaming Mad George and Steve Wang. We also have outtakes, gag reel. They have new production and artwork gallery, alternative title sequences for English, Japanese, Spanish, German. There's a ton of different trailers from different countries as well. So there's just a ton of stuff on here. And then of course you get the soundtrack on top of it. So it's a loaded release, and Unearthed did a really good job on this. I think they're very proud of it. I think the print came out very good. This is a really nice looking print, and I am seeing the suits in ways I've never been able to see them before. And it's great because back in the 80s, and they even talk about this in the extras, that back in the day, they had to be so careful about people being able to see any aspect of the shoes or underneath or skin or anything like that. So they had to do like a full makeup job. And when you see that in 4K, you really see the craftsmanship of everything that they did in this movie. Even the sets, and the things that they did for this movie are really good. Is it the best acting in the world? Hell no. Is it a lot of fucking fun? Hell yes. This is a great release. I'm very glad to have it. Thank you guys, MVD and Unearthed, for sending this out. It's out available now, so if you want to pick it up, I got some links down below. You can pick it up from any of them, whether it's MVD Shop, Unearthed, Amazon. I'll put everything down below. Are you a fan of this movie? Were you a fan growing up as a kid seeing it? I would love to hear what you think about this. Did you like part 2? Do you think they'll make a part 2? Will Unearthed release part 2 now that they've gotten sort of the permission from that? I would love to know. Really hope that we get to see at least a Blu-ray of part 2 coming out, if not a 4K. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video or if it helped you, please hit the like and subscribe button and the little bell notification to let you know when I got a new video coming out. Thank you guys for the patience. I hope you're enjoying the content. And as always, long live the void.